Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. These are so reflective. Okay. Hi.
Thanks for
Yes.
joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. You have been on the forefront of my brain, obviously, because last week I had an interview and I don't know, I think we had just had an email exchange regarding like dates and rescheduling. And like I got on I got on an interview with someone and she was totally British. And I was like, hey, I was like, so you're in Boston, right? And she was like, no, I'm in South Wales. And I was like, oh, I was like, okay, yeah, just kidding. It was all
Yeah,
great. And
you're like, that explains the accent.
I'm like, well, that's what threw me off. Cause like in my mind, I was thinking about you and like I got on to do the interview and I'm like, wow. I was like, and she's in Boston. I was like, okay, that's cool. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Totally someone else.
That's funny.
And hope things are great over there. Like, how's the
Right?
weather?
But anyways,
But
thanks
yeah,
again for joining me. So you're in Nashville right now, or are
yes,
you
yes.
back in
So
Buffalo?
no, I'm permanently in Franklin, which is just south of Nashville by like 15 minutes. And yeah, I'm here. I'm only going to be in Buffalo for like, family things. And then if any shows come up, which usually I'm back and forth quite a bit, especially over the summer, but obviously this year's a little bit different. There's trying to figure things out. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I went to Nashville a few years ago, and I've been dying to go back because I had such a great time there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Were you on Broadway and like in downtown area?
Yeah, kind of near downtown, kind of close to where I think the college campus is, if I remember correctly.
Vanderbilt?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So is that Midtown? Um, Probably like maybe a mile and a half or so from Broadway. Does that sound about right?
I think so. Yeah, it feels like a blur because I was just there for like a day or so.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was joining
Very cool.
a friend's band that kind of was doing a tour down south, and I was just kind of tagging along for fun. So I was just kind of
Okay.
going where they took me, and but I remember Nashville was like such a great time, and I'm kind of sad.
Yeah.
This one barbecue joint we went to, I've just found out it closed down, so I'm really bummed about that.
Oh, which one was it? Do you remember?
Oh gosh. Oh, it's totally blinking in my head.
Yeah, there's maybe it was I don't think it would be Jack's barbecue because they're pretty up.
It was like a
They
very
have
small one where it had like two picnic tables outside. You kind of walk up to the counter
and
and order, and then you can sit outside and eat.
yeah, I'm not sure, but again, we have great barbecue
I
here.
know you
That's why
probably
I
have so
asked.
many places.
Oh my goodness. Well, actually, like Peg Leg Porker, which is located in Midtown area, the Gulch. It's in the Gulch, but it is so freaking good. Like they do like their barbecue. It's their barbecue sauce. It's like a Carolina style, and it is just awesome. And I'm from Buffalo, so like I appreciate good food. Like our pizza, I think is bar none. And like I don't eat pizza outside of Buffalo usually. If it's like a flatbread, it's like fine, but I don't go like to order pizza from anywhere here. I'll wait till I go home. And then so like that to me is like barbecue is to Nashville and to the South what like pizza is to us Western New Yorkers.
Yeah, and here in Boston, it's known for like seafood and clam chowder and
Right. Yeah. So I've actually been to Boston a number of times, usually for auditions, but there was one time I was there. Paula Abdul was my manager, and she was dating someone who lived in that vicinity. And like I went there to record with her, and then we ended up like the whole weekend just like going out, eating out like at some of these awesome restaurants, and the food was just awesome. Like you just couldn't get a bad meal if you really tried to. The food culture seems great there.
yeah, and you can find a little bit of everything 'cause Boston has become such a diverse city. Like there's a lot of Brazilians, Haitians. I mean, pretty
Yeah.
much every type of cuisine you can find it here.
Yeah. And are you from there, Jen?
I'm originally from Michigan, which I was going to talk to you about because I know you're a big Motown fan. And
Yes. Oh my goodness. That is so cool. Yeah. I mean, like, so Buffalo, right, is very, I feel like
yeah,
similar to areas of Michigan for sure. I've been to Detroit, which parts of it kind of scared me. I'm not gonna
yeah, I
lie.
know it's parts of it. It's kind of sketchy, but I've been hearing from friends that Detroit is starting to rebuild itself, and like a lot of young
Well,
people are moving there to start, create startups basically.
yeah. So what's funny about what the point you just made is my brother and I were there last year. My brother's in real estate and he flips and will hold like residential property. And we went there because he was like scouting out like Detroit, like because in Buffalo, that's what happened. Like our less affluent areas that were really not doing so hot. The next generation came in and bought up so much property and then just started renovating, and we were experiencing somewhat of a resurgence even now, and created really like awesome artistic communities. There's like co-ops and all this stuff. So some of our poorer neighborhoods have really like started to turn around. And so that's what he brought me to Detroit to kind of like scout out some of these neighborhoods that are very similar to like some of the pockets of in Buffalo. And you can like it's one of those situations where you can like buy a house, for $1.
I know that it's
you
crazy.
know yeah. And like, so he was thinking, he was like, if you bought up like a block, adjacent to maybe one of their historic streets, how they have those like historic streets where like it's, you can't really touch those homes or those houses because they have historical value.
Yeah.
um yeah, he was like talking about buying up one of the blocks like near one of those streets, and so therefore like it would just kind of like spill over, and hopefully like you'd start seeing like the neighborhood turn around. But Detroit amazed me because there were areas like that which were really like obviously desolate and not like the buildings were falling apart and dilapidated. But then you would like cross a street and you would be like in St. Clair Shores where there's like governmental like official housing, and like there are like massive homes with like 18 Escalades outside, and they would be divided by like a street.
Yeah, I know. It's like a checkerboard, one square, it's like, don't go there. Another square, it's like totally cool.
Yeah, it was crazy. So are you from that area? Or are you from a different part of Michigan?
I'm from Troy, so it's a suburb of Detroit.
Okay.
Not too far
Yeah.
from, I don't know if you know Bloomfield Hills,
Yes, which is
Birmingham.
stunning. Bloomfield Hills
Yeah.
is stunning. Yeah.
Yeah, you can find
Very
so many
cool.
mansions. I didn't grow up in the mansion, but I grew up in like a kind of like an upper class, neighborhood where you can ride
Yeah.
your bike through the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Kind of
And
felt
then
like one
and
of those feel good movies from the 90s. Where the kid rides his
perfect.
bike and throws the newspaper and people are out
Yeah.
watering their lawns.
That's awesome. I think that is like, I think, yeah, that sounds beautiful. It sounds like a beautiful place. I know where Bloomfield Hills is, and I do know where Troy is, like kind of like in my mind. I'm just trying to place it. But so because we went all over those areas just trying to like see like what was going on there. But yeah, it seemed like an awesome, like parts of town seemed like great places to grow up, and reminded us of our home. So yeah, well, that's wonderful. And I know that you deal with lake effect, right? Y'all have
Oh
lake
yeah.
effect snow there? Yeah. Yeah. Us too.
But
Us too.
yeah, it's kind of good to see Detroit on the rise again because, like you mentioned, it's such a historic area with so many great musicians came out of that city. It's
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that and you want to see these places that have such history do well, you really do. Buffalo has an awesome music scene as well, but nobody really talks about it.
yeah,
It's true. Like it just doesn't get talked about very often. So
yeah. But I
um
want to talk about your latest single, "Where You Began," which is very soulful, kind of a little bluesy, and I know
yeah.
the lyrics are
Oh
very
yeah.
relatable as well. So
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So yeah, so Where You Began was written in 2017. It was co-written with my friend Alex Haddad, who is the lead guitarist in a band here called Them Vibes. And basically, he and I got together one afternoon, in the summer, and like just wrote this song in about 45 minutes. And when I tell you most of that time was spent probably drinking coffee, that's totally true. Um,
Sometimes
but
you just need that coffee.
yeah, I know. And we do. And we do. Um, but I love writing with Alex because he's a very authentic artist. He's not somebody you go to is like, oh, I need to write like an up-tempo song. And it's not that he couldn't, or wouldn't do it. It's just that he's so he's very true to himself. And so it kind of like brings that out in me as well, like, well, what do you want to write about? Like, what are you going through? Like, what are you experiencing in your life? Like that we can, make something out of. And so that's where You Began came from. And I have to be honest with you, Jen, I don't consider myself like a great songwriter. It's not something I grew up doing, and so I'm very blessed with the company that I keep, I think, because they help me make such beautiful like basically songs and out of, kind of like, life experiences. And I'm very grateful for the people I'm surrounded by because they're talented. They're so talented and they just know how to do it, So that's where You Began came from and how it started. And basically it started out as like a heartbreak song, like picking up the pieces after like a relationship end sort of situation. But the coolest thing about it is that like the meaning for the song for me personally totally transformed into another thing last year with 2020 and COVID and quarantine and all these things. I ended up in my hometown eventually recording with musicians that I haven't worked with since I was like 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so like all the songs I'm releasing this year, Where You Began included, are kind of like this collaboration and this of my two worlds being like, Western New York and Nashville, Tennessee. And like, they took on this whole new meaning for me. And Where You Began, the title alone tells you like, I was brought home, which is so fascinating to me now. Music is just really amazes me. It really does.
I know, right? It's crazy how, music can just introduce new people to your life and just take you on a new journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, and where this song is concerned, it's just the meaning of it. I know, and it sounds relatable, like lyrically speaking, it's so relatable, but it just means this whole new thing for me now, which is cool.
Yeah, like a new interpretation of the song.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you have plans to just release singles throughout the year? I believe it was 10, right? 10 new songs?
Yeah, we were shooting for 10, Jen. We'll see if we get there. So basically, like all these songs were recorded last year, and I was like at a little bit of a crossroads. Do I release like a body of work and an album, or do I release singles? And so I was advised to go with singles, and that's what we did. And I kind of like honestly became like more attracted to the idea because like each song gets highlighted. You got like it has its own story and it has its own history and like how it was written and who it was written with. So this way it's kind of like each one gets highlighted in its own, spotlight. And but they all will like flow and they all will make sense together because they were all from the same era of time and written for the most part with all the same writers.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, it seems to be more of a singles driven industry right now because people can't really tour to promote an album, at least the past year.
For sure. And I'm sure that, everybody kind of faces that decision. Like, do I want to release an album or do I want to release singles? And like in the US, singles are definitely, I think more the norm right now. I would have liked the idea of releasing a body of work just because it's less done, like people aren't doing it as often. But at the same time, I'm really happy with how it's just fun for me. Like, so every couple of months, it's like, bam, I got a new one. It's like, 2 months, like, bam, I got a new one, it's just fun. It's fun. And like new artwork and like everything kind of like, it just like, it looks cool. Like when I pull up my Spotify account, I'm like, okay, I'm like, I did stuff this year,
Yeah.
So
I kind of miss those days of going into a record store and like holding a physical CD and kind of taking out the booklet and just reading all the lyrics.
Yeah, I think we all do. I think that was just the experience of what like music could give you, aside from live performance, and I miss those days too. I think everyone does. I think the industry really needs to like pivot, in terms of how, we have Spotify and all these streaming services, and like things are so different now than they were 20 years ago. And it's, I don't think that the industry has really caught up with how everything has transpired, if that makes any sense.
Digital,
Everything's digital, and like you don't get the lyrics anymore unless you're like following the artist on Instagram and they decide to like post them. You don't get who produced it, like you don't get who engineered it, like all these people that like are due their credit on a body of work or a single. They don't get that unless you're on Instagram like making posts about it. And it's
right.
It's just, I don't know, it's definitely different. And for me, I'm not gonna lie, I have Spotify, like I totally have Spotify, but until there's a way that, another option, I should say, until there's like another mainstream option that totally makes sense. I think that needs to happen in the industry. I think that they need to figure it out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where, it goes next, once things open up again. And
yeah,
will the industry have to kind of adapt again?
Yeah, I totally hear you. And it's even now, like, with the South is obviously definitely plugging away.
I know it feels like we're like two different countries, because here in Boston we're still I don't even know when live music will open again. I think I read maybe June 30th, if I'm not mistaken. I think June is when they're shooting to open up venues at like limited capacity, but
yeah,
I'm not entirely sure, but I hope that's the case because I totally miss it. But yeah, it seems like in the South, everyone's just like, we're going to do what we want.
I don't even know if Nashville ever properly like shut down. That just did not happen. And, like we are on the side of caution here, regarding everything. My parents, my fiance's parents are, they're in 70, and we wanted to be careful, with them, specifically. And so we've just been careful this whole time. But once I got vaccinated, I should say, I was like, kind of like, I had this emotional response. Like I wanted to like resume normal life. I was like, okay, I'm vaccinated. Like my little 2-week period has passed. Like I'm ready to go, and I don't know if that was like the right way to feel, it was a natural reaction, but, now statewide restrictions are completely lifted here, completely. So yesterday I was out in the Gulch, which is like a popular area of town. And like, there are people everywhere. Jen.
Oh my gosh.
Everywhere. No masks, no, like not a care in the world. You would have thought that COVID like never happened.
Yeah, it kind of seems like that when I see people in groups without mask and just acting like, things are normal, and
I know
hope it doesn't exist. It's like hard to know how to feel about it.
Yeah. And I'm there with you, because like, I think we all share the sentiment that we want to like get back to normal, but nobody knows like how long vaccines last. Nobody knows if we'll need boosters like come fall. Nobody knows, like, none of this stuff has been made clear as to how it's gonna be going forward. So like, to just like throw caution to the wind and run outside and be like, oh yeah, COVID's over, like, it's really not. But it's just I think now the people that have not gotten vaccinated are the ones most at risk, right? Because they haven't gotten vaccinated, and those of us that have are like, okay, well, if we're not supposed to wear masks, like, I guess we won't wear masks. And so therefore, but we don't know if we could pass it, I don't know. A lot of questions, Jen.
I know, yeah, that's how I feel about all these festivals making announcements, because it's like, on one hand, I'm like, yay, festivals, but on the other hand, I'm like, how are they going to handle groups, being together for the entire day?
Yeah. So did you see, I mean, like, obviously they can, I guess, take as many precautions as they want to, or, or don't want to. But did you see, like, some of them are having, like, putting circles out, like, on the lawn, like, per party, and trying to keep people separated that way. But again, here in the South, like, COVID pretty much never happened. So I don't think that they will be doing any of that. But I'm sure maybe people like our festivals in New York, or like, by you in Boston, maybe they'll try to do stuff like that.
Yeah. Guess we'll have to wait and see.
I know.
So what else is next for you that people should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, so I have the next single in the works. It's been mastered, and I'm excited to release it. It is basically, honestly, like, the sound is more of a follow-up to my version of Simple Man by Lynyrd Skynyrd. It's a ballad. It has like Southern rock undertone. It has Muscle Shoals feels.
Oh, nice.
It has, it's got a vibe to it. And the cool thing about it is that it's actually technically a cover song of but like a country ballad that was released about 10 years ago. But when I went into studio to kind of mess around with it, we totally like restructured it, reproduced it. And it became like this kind of gritty, like soulful song. And it's called So Different Now. And the original version was called Fighting Chance. So we remade it, and to the extent of which where it now has a new title. But I'm really excited about it because I think it's really indicative of like the sound that I've been developing and pursuing and trying to find in myself, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean.
Yeah, like I grew up loving soul music, and like but I also loved Elvis Presley. Like, he was my ultimate favorite. My mother loved him, and so it just kind of trickled down that way. And this is like, I'm developing a sound that is really reminiscent of like an Aretha Franklin fronting like the Rolling Stones. And I think that is honestly who I probably am on the inside. And so that's what I want to develop and put out to the public. And I think that with this next single, like, we're getting there, like, we're well on our way. And I want to release the single that'll be out June 27th. And then on to the next. We're just going to start firing them out. These are all songs that I have co-written that I am like so proud of, with the exception of So Different Now, but I didn't co-write that one, but I'm like so proud of them. And I just want to see what they do. Like, go out there, do something, like, see what, like, see it, fly, sink, swim, whatever, like, do it,
Just do something.
Yeah, just be out there, see
just
if like
exist.
Yes, yes, that's it.
Well, not exist, but
but be out there, like, live, like, here's your chance, like, be free,
right.
So
that's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited about it. And live performance is a big question mark because everybody and their mother is just coming out of the woodwork to do stuff. So we'll have to kind of like navigate those waters. But I will say I do have a show a small one at Acme on Broadway. I haven't really promoted it in any facet. In fact, Jen, you're probably like the second person I told about it, but that's because it's been a while since we've been on stage. I'm just going to try to get like my feet wet and then see what happens. So it's been a while.
I'm sure it's like riding a bike, you know. You haven't done it in a while, but once you get on, you're like, oh, I know how to do this.
Right. And I hope you're right, Jen. We're just going to go out there and have fun and see what happens. So
that's exciting. Well,
yeah.
Going along with live music, what would you say is your favorite concert memory that you attended as a band or as a fan?
As a fan? Okay. My goodness. Let me think. Well, I have to say that two come to mind. One, I didn't really attend as a fan because I was the opening act, but she still blew my mind. And that was Grace Potter and the Nocturnals, because it was the first time I had ever seen her live. Oh, she is fire. But this was years ago. And I was in a band at the time, and we opened for her at the Buffalo waterfront on Canal Side. It's this big open space right on Lake Erie. It's gorgeous. And they, host these massive like concerts and live performances there. And I opened for her. And like, when she came out, she was just like, she's all over the place. She's a very vibrant performer. She just does not care. She's like whipping the hair around, and she's hot, Nice. And it's just like, it just all makes so much sense. And then of course,
she owns the stage.
Yes. And she's just immensely talented. She writes, she plays, she does all the things. So she was somebody who I loved to see. And then my fiance took me to see Marty Stewart here at the Country Music Hall of Fame about maybe a year or two, probably 2 years ago now. And Marty Stewart was amazing. I had actually met him one time overseas. We were both touring, and he was just super, obviously he's Marty Stewart. Everybody knows him. He's talented. We know that. But Chris Stapleton was a guest vocalist and a guest performer, and he came on to do one song. And I have never met Chris Stapleton. I love him to death. Like, I listen to his songs. Like, I just have immense respect for his talent and his history and being a songwriter on Music Row, and like how he just like paid his dues. And then boom, like he just like a bomb went off. Here's Chris Stapleton, Anyway, he came on to do a song with Marty Stewart. And when I tell you, it was like this bluesy, like, but four on the floor, like rocking song. And I'm in tears. Like, I am just like crying, bawling my eyes out, because it was the first time that I had seen him like in an intimate setting like that. I saw him one time perform at the CMAs, and that was cool. But, big, massive arena, it's the CMAs, obviously. This was like a intimate setting, not so many people there, like just, that could fill the seats. And like, his voice just had such an effect on me. Like, I just bawled the entire time, mascara, all of it just down. And everyone else is like jamming, and I'm like crying. So I would say that was pretty serious. And then, okay, last one, Vince Gill, massive celebrity here in Nashville, songwriter, all of it. And he has this song called Go Rest High up on that mountain. And it is about a relative who passed away, and he wrote it about them. And he performed that at the Ryman one time. And that was another time where I just like literally was drowning in my own tears. And that's it. And I rest my case. I won't go on anymore. But so there have certainly been a few times where like I was just totally floored by somebody on stage.
Yeah, I can't imagine like having your voice having effect on someone like that. That must be such an incredible feeling.
I know it. And like, I think that's the beautiful thing about music and creating any sort of art, really, not just music, but any creative industry, is that you never know what something that you do or a moment you create or something that you make is like what the effect is going to have on a given person. And you might not ever know the effect that you've had on somebody, you know, because if you don't have direct contact, if that person doesn't tell you, like, you never really know. And I think that is the coolest thing about the arts, is that it can be so transcendent and, you know, can go from person to person like that. And yeah, so yeah, they definitely had an effect on me. Like if they didn't know before, I was bawling my eyes out. It was embarrassing. Thank God it was dark. Yeah.
So I was gonna say maybe they saw you and they were touched by your tears.
and maybe they were. Hopefully they were not. Hopefully they did not know. So
well, Caitlin, I really appreciate your time. It's been a blast chatting with you, and hope to catch you live one day, hopefully soon.
Yes. Jen, I would love that. I would love that so much.